Amen.
Well, it's a miracle I'm even up here because I never dreamed I'd be speaking in front of people. Maybe a nightmare, but I've been delivered from depression, obsessive compulsive behavior, and eating disorders, which I had for 39 years. And I want to tell you a little bit of the history, how I got there, and what an awesome thing has happened because of Jesus. Well, my mom and dad got divorced when I was a year old and put me in a foster home where I lived for 2 years. Then I went to live with my grandparents, my mother's parents, and I was happy, and I lived there till I was 11. I never heard from my dad, but a few times, and every time he called, he would say, "Hi, how's your weight?" That's what he wouldn't say. He loved me or how are you. He wanted to know how my weight was. So I thought that must be important. And then my mom came back when I was 11, and she got married to my stepdad. And she wanted me to move in with her, and she had been treating me really good, taking me out for pizza and had been fun. And so I thought, okay. I moved in with her, and she put me on a diet, and she started being verbally and physically abusive. My stepdad was fine. I got along with him real well. And so that's when I started hiding food. I would try to find food and hide it so I would have something to eat. And we had a pear tree in the backyard, and I would hide pears, and they would rot because I would forget about them. And that went on, and I was in a really bad car wreck when I was 13, and I broke my leg, my hip, my pelvis, and my jaw. And I was in the hospital for 2 months, in a body cast for 2 months, and I had my jaws wired shut, so I lost 22 pounds. And so I was like 98, and everybody treated me nice. Everybody was nice to me, and I thought, well, this is the answer. It's my weight. If I was a good weight, everything would be fine. Because my mom was nice to me, and so I didn't think about food at that time. I was just living, and I was good in school. I enjoyed school. And then when I was 14 and a half, that Christmas of 79, all of a sudden I was depressed. I couldn't sleep. I started thinking about my weight and like trying to starve myself, and I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to be around people, and I was real moody, and my mom couldn't take it, so she had me go move in with my grandma where I lived for like a year, and then she had me come back, and my stepdad started sexually abusing me, and I told her, and he denied it, and she believed him. So that went on, and that was scary. And I resented my mother, and I didn't really forgive her then. When I was 18, I forgave her, but um, I had a skin condition I had to take cortisone for, and I gained 40 pounds, and that was my worst nightmare. And so I was really depressed, and it was time to start college, and I freaked out. I didn't have friends, I couldn't interact socially, so I cut my wrist, and I ended up going to the state hospital where I met my first husband, and I also learned how to throw up, and two big mistakes. I had a son with my first husband, then he started doing methamphetamine, so I got divorced. Then I was single, and I went to work with my 1 year old son, and he got spinal meningitis, and it was bacterial, and he was really, they said he could die, and he survived, but he had hearing loss from it. And then I was going to work one day. I had noticed this guy on the bus, and he had kind eyes. And I hadn't really seen that in a guy, and he looked innocent. And so I thought, he sat across from me one day, and I asked him about a book he had from school. And he came and sat by me, and we started talking. And then he asked me out for lunch, so I got his number, and I called him, and we went on our date. And yeah, at this time I had an eating disorder. I was, because I had learned how to throw up, so I was not eating or throwing up, and so it was hard to go out to lunch with him because I never ate lunch. So I ate a little bit and gave him. He ate the rest, and he didn't know about my eating disorder at first because when we first met, the first 5 times we talked, it was after work, and I worked second shift, and we talked all night. We talked 12 hours. And so we really got to know each other. He talked about family, and I really liked his thinking and his humor. This is Joe, by the way, I'm talking about. And Yeah, and we were both Catholic, which was kind of important to me because I had been going to St. Mary's, and that's all I knew, and I liked that church. And I didn't know Joe wasn't saved because I accepted Jesus when I was like 6, but I didn't praise or worship Jesus. I never really thought about him. I prayed to God and worshiped God, but I just I knew who Jesus. I knew him. I didn't know him, but I knew who he was and what he did, and I loved him, but I didn't appreciate him like I do now. And we dated for about a year. Then my eating disorder became evident. He thought I would just stop, and he was drinking, and I didn't know I didn't drink, and that bothered me. But I thought, well, maybe he won't do it all the time. So I got pregnant, and we got married. My eating disorder was bad when I was pregnant. I lost weight, and Joe started drinking more. But he worked every day, and he wasn't abusive. He had a temper sometimes, but he wasn't abusive. And then I had my son, and I went back to work, and I had, was not eating or throwing up when I got home. And I worked second shift, and he worked first shift, so we hardly ever saw each other. And I lost interest in things. I didn't want to do anything with him. I just came home and went to bed, and he would be at work when I got up, so I would never see him, and I didn't really see the kids that much. And then I got pregnant again, and I worked for about 4 months, and I had horrible headaches and really bad leg swelling, so I quit and decided to stay home because 3 kids babysitting would cost almost as much as I earned. So I stayed home with the kids. And then my eating disorder got really bad. I didn't do it when the kids were up, but when they went to bed, I would eat and throw up. And I started exercising all the time for like 3 hours a day. And I didn't do anything with Joe, and when he came home, I wanted him to take care of the kids. And so, like, he had the responsibility and obligations of a husband, but he didn't have any of the benefits because I wasn't a friend. I didn't like being around anybody, and I didn't want to. I didn't really want him to be home because I wanted to, I don't know, watch TV or eat and throw up or do something like that. And it was just consuming. And I played with the kids, and I was attentive to them when they were young, but when they got older, I didn't know how to be a parent because I stopped maturing when I was 14. I didn't know how to be a real person or an adult, and I didn't know how to discipline them or anything. So the kids were kind of on their own. Joe was there, and he disciplined them for what he could. But in 2001, Joe got delivered from drugs and alcohol and got saved. And I saw the change, and I thought, well, I was so used to him drinking excessively. I thought, oh, this can't last. And after 6 months, I thought, wow, this is real. And he said everything in him that wanted to drink and do drugs was gone. And I said, oh, I want that because I was obsessed with eating and throwing up or not eating and exercising all the time because I walked for like 2 hours a day. I walked 5 miles every day, rain, sleet, or snow, I walked. And I wanted that, and I prayed for that to be delivered like that. And then in 2003, I was in a wreck with my son, and I was seat belted in, but I had a brain injury from my head shaking, and my brain swelled up, and I was in a coma for 5 days. And I had to relearn when I woke up how to walk, talk, eat, and do everything, simple math, little just normal daily living things. I had to learn all over again. But I wasn't depressed. They had me on Ritalin because all I did was sleep because of the brain injury. So I figured that's why I wasn't depressed. And I ate 3 times a day, and I wasn't thinking about my weight. And then when I got out of the hospital, during the thing, I had a brain cord injury, and my eye went up in my head. This eye was all the way up here. All you could see was white. And after 2 months, we went to the eye doctor, and he said, well, if it hasn't come down, it's going to be that way for life. You can just wear an eye patch. And then we went back like a month later. I was laying on our bed one day, and all of a sudden, I saw it move, and my eye came back down. And so we went to the doctor, and I think he was Hindu or something. And we told him about God saving, delivering me from, or healing me, and he didn't receive that. He was like, he didn't understand that and didn't believe it, but He saw it. So I I stopped throwing up then, and I started eating and spitting stuff out, and I got down to 75 pounds, and I was happy with that. I would have liked 60 something better, but um, so I spit everything out, and I used to hide food so Joe wouldn't know. He didn't know I did this. I ate a little bit around him, but I mostly that's all I did all day was eating, prepare, buy food, eat it, throw it up. I mean, not throw it up, spit it out, and try to get rid of the evidence. And this went on, and until 2013, I hurt my back. I had fallen down a flight of stairs years before and hurt my back, and sometimes it would go out, and I couldn't sit, stand, or walk, and I'd have to lay in a recliner, and that's all I could do. Well, in 2013, it went out for like 2 weeks, and I was in the recliner, and it was so painful even to go to the bathroom, and I was so depressed because I couldn't walk 5 miles, and I knew I would probably gain. So I took 2 bottles of sleeping pills and tried to kill myself. And my husband took me to the emergency room, and I was there for a week in the hospital. And when I came home, he had found all my food that I had hidden that I used to spit out and got rid of it. And I was so upset. And when that was gone, I gained 40 pounds because I couldn't have that way to deal with things. And the kids were having problems being teenagers, and I was an ineffective parent. I was not good. They fought, and I didn't know. I didn't show affection. I didn't show affection to Joe. I loved him, but I didn't have feelings. I was like dead inside. And I loved God, and I loved how Joe was so excited about Jesus and how he was so filled with joy and life. And I wanted that. And we started going to prayer meetings, and I liked it, and I met people I liked because I hadn't had friends like my whole adult life. Joe was my friend, and we went to the prayer meetings. I came to Hope, and I liked it. Um, I didn't really feel all of it because I'm so used to Catholic church. It was different, and um, yeah, I did not like worship music. It irritated me for some reason, and I don't know why. And because I used to like rock, and then July 12th of this year, last year, um, one day my hair was down below my rear end. It was real long, and it was a hassle because I braided it every time I washed it. And I said, Joe, I think it'd be good if you cut my hair. So he got a scissors, and he was cutting across the back, and the first snip of the scissors, I felt a sensation. I felt something lifting from me, and I felt weight removed, and all of a sudden I felt lighter, and my head was clear, and I felt good. And I thought, wow, I must have really needed to get rid of that hair. But I was happy, and we were going to a prayer meeting at night, and I went to prayer meetings, and I knew I liked the people, but I didn't get into prayer. I had started reading the Bible in 2015 because I want to know more about God's Word, but I didn't thirst for it, and I didn't treasure it like I do now. And when I felt that, I felt happy to go to this prayer meeting, and I interacted there, and I thought, well, that's different. And I went home, and I started wanting to do things. I started cooking new things. I wanted to be around Joe, and I was like happy. And finally, after a few weeks, I said, Joe, I think I've been delivered from depression. And then I stopped obsessing about my weight and food because after I quit spitting out things and throwing up, I started having a problem with junk food. I would not eat a lot of it, but that's like I had to have it a certain amount every night. And if we didn't have it, I'd be very upset. And I got delivered from that. I stopped obsessing about that, and we never went out to eat because I never did family things. I didn't want to do family things, but now I love that, and I pray. I wake up in the morning, sometimes at 5 a.m., and I read the Bible, and I pray, and I listen to praise and worship music every day, and I pray for 2 hours. And if I don't, I'm uncomfortable. It's like so much peace and joy. And I knew God was good, and I know it was Jesus that delivered me. I knew that. And I just have this love for Jesus now, and I want to know him more. And our house was a wreck. I did minimal things when I was depressed and didn't get in the hang of getting it cleaned up because there was so much clutter. Then, right around Thanksgiving, Joe said, "We're going to have Thanksgiving at our house." And I thought, oh my Lord, the floor is tore up, our kitchen's a wreck. We have tools and things all over the living room floor. The wall's not painted. Well, my son Ben, who's here, is my middle son. He came over and he brought some rugs from my mother-in-law that covered the living room floor. And Joe had a dining table at work, and Ben spent 3 to 4 days scouring the kitchen, cleaning the cabinets, getting on his hands and knees and cleaning the floor, and he didn't want anything for it. And that was such a blessing. Now we have people. We had Thanksgiving and Christmas at our house. We invite people over for dinner. I'm not ashamed to have anybody at our house, and I enjoy it. And I used to hate playing games. Now I like playing games, and I like going places with Joe. It's like we're just married because I never got to enjoy him that much when we were first married because I was like dead inside. And and my identity is not my weight anymore because it's my identity is in Christ, and that's who he lives in me now, which I always knew that. And the joy of the Lord is my strength because now I have the joy in my heart. I knew it in my head before, but now I have it in my heart, and I see the goodness of God every day. There's a song, I see you in everything all day, and everywhere I turn there's a reminder. And with every beat in my heart keeps reminding me, I see you in everything. I see the Lord in everything, and he moves in possible situations all the time. And it's just, I've learned to take my thoughts captive because I would always worry about things like our insurance wouldn't cover my medicine, and I had to go through all this hassle. And I thought, well, I didn't think about it because if I thought about it, I thought I might worry. So I just trusted the Lord, and it got taken care of. And so that worked out. And the doctor told me we don't do that. And then I called and finally said, well, you did everything you can do. So, and they finally took care of it. So God is so good, and my family went through heck, and Joe stuck with me. He loved me, and I wasn't there for him. I was not affectionate. I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to be around him. I loved him, but I didn't want to be around anybody. And now I thrive on social events, and I have friends, and I enjoy talking and interacting, and it's just a whole new life, and it's all because of Jesus. And I worship him, and I thank him every day because he saved me and just gave me a whole new life. And I exercise now, but only for an hour. I walk about 2 to 3 miles a day. Because when I got out of the hospital and gained weight and quit spitting stuff out, I quit exercising. I did nothing but watch TV. And that's all I could do. I couldn't concentrate on anything, and I would not sit still. I would get up and flit around and do things because I didn't have peace. And now I have peace, and I can concentrate, and I walk just an hour for exercise. I don't so much in the winter, but sometimes we go to the mall and walk. And it's just a whole new life. I haven't had a life since I was a kid, and it's amazing. And I forgave my mother, and we have a good relationship now. I see her maybe once a year. She lives in California, and we talk twice a week, and we get along great. And she apologized to me. This is after I was delivered. She apologized to me for the first time, saying she was sorry she was so hard on me. But she said her dad was that way with her, and I guess that's all she knew. But now we have a great relationship. I forgave her before that, though. But we have a great relationship now. And so my family is intact. And I really enjoy my family and doing things with them now. So, and I just want to pray if there's anybody here that has obsessive thoughts or compulsive behavior or wrong thinking about eating or no identity or depression, I want to pray for you because I've been delivered from this and I lived through it for so long. I know that Jesus, everybody can close your eyes so I don't have to single anybody out, but Jesus, I pray that you touch their hearts and clear their minds and give them right thoughts, thoughts of you and the right way of thinking, and that they are not obsessed with other things that take them away from a normal life and you. And may they have the joy of you in their hearts, and then they will be free, and their identity is in you. And you are who they are. So they don't, it's not what they do, it's not how they look, it's you. So I pray that you free them from any bondage that they have. In Jesus' name I pray.
And one other part of the story that I was only up here to help her remember stuff, because I've heard her testimony twice now, well, 3 times now. But you mentioned at the Sunshine Girls that your exercising compulsion was so great that you would run in place
I would jog
constantly.
for about a year or two. I would get up and I would jog in place until at least 5 p.m. all day. I would be out hanging the clothes and jogging. I jogged when I cooked. I jogged when I was on the toilet. I sat, but I moved my legs. And we couldn't go places because I had to move. And I got called for jury duty. And I freaked out because I wasn't going to be able to jog. And fortunately, they canceled the case. I went home and jogged. And I did that for like a year or two because I felt like if I would be gaining weight if I didn't I don't know. I finally quit doing that, but I exercised for a couple hours anyway. Um, but yeah, I went through that for a short time, and that drove Joe crazy, I'm sure, because that would be irritating. But I had all kinds of issues going on, but I've been delivered from them all.
Amen. So I just asked Laura that if there is anybody here that has a loved one that is dealing with any of these kinds of issues, um, if you would come up, if you want to come up and just stand and proxy for them, stand in the gap for them, and that Laura will pray, but come forward and just represent whoever it is, family, friend, um, and just stand in the gap for them so that she can pray and it's recognized. And if you want, I mean, you can pray along and, call out their name. So if anybody wants to stand, there's a few people already, but if anybody wants to, you can come up. You can come up and line up front. I'm going to stand in the gap for someone. So